following is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Handoff middle. First down. Touchdown! And listen to the Cougar Nation.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Good evening, Cougar Nation. Welcome on into your show. We're taking your phone calls over the next hour, 801-575-8255. Good vibes all around for BYU basketball as they had a perfect week last week, going 2-0 and looking to build on that momentum as they have another big week in the Big 12 coming up. Baylor tomorrow night and then Saturday at UCF. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you. And Matt, much more enjoyable to have these Monday night conversations and shows when the Cougs are winning.
It's amazing how much winning affects the vibes and just the overall attitude that the players have, the coaches have, and of course us, the fans, have as well, Mitch.
BYU takes down Cincinnati on Saturday, and it was a dominant performance. Let's dive into the takeaways.
Cougar Nation, takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
Dominant performance over Cincinnati. BYU wins 80-52. Cougs now 4-4 in Big 12 play. That's significant. And they're riding high. 2-game win streak after they followed up and validated that blowout win at Colorado. This team's playing well. So what's your big takeaway coming out of last week, Matt?
I think a lot of people look at the shot making, and that would be the big takeaway. But for me, it was the rebounding. They out-rebound Cincinnati by 6. And remember, in that loss a year ago where Trevenell popped off, but it wasn't enough, Cincinnati soundly out-rebounded BYU. And BYU, the shot, it comes and it goes, but rebounding to me is really the metric that I pay attention to closely when it comes to wins and losses. Against Utah, they were out-rebounded. But then you look at the wins against Colorado and, of course, against Cincinnati, rebounding much better. This is still, Mitch, in terms of rebounding margin, the top team in the Big 12. And when they rebound well, they are a hard team to beat. And I thought it did a great job against Cincinnati. Bandango was held in check. This Cincinnati team is tall. They're physical. But BYU, they beat them in that regard, and I thought that was a huge key to the big win.
BYU out-rebounded Cincinnati 34-28 in the second half. BYU out-rebounded the Bearcats 17-8. So, yes, the Aziz Bandango curse can now be lifted, and BYU took care of business on the glass. I thought another significant development from last week was Yegor Demon. He's looking like the player we envisioned he would be for BYU against Cincinnati. I thought he had his best game in Big 12 play, 15 points. All of his points from the field came from the three-point line, which was significant. You called that on Cougar Sports Saturday. Thought he would hit more than 2 threes. He hit 3, and then he was 6 of 7 from the foul line, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. Yegor did all of that in 25 minutes. I thought he was excellent, and that's a positive sign for this BYU team as they look to continue stacking up wins.
His stat line, Mitch, is exactly what you need from him. You need double-digit points. You need 7 to 8 assists. He had 7, only 3 turnovers, so better than 2-to-1 assist to turnover. And then he had 5 rebounds as well, so he was contributing from that guard line on the glass. That's what you need. Maybe not 15, but you got to have double-digit scoring from him. He's got to be a threat. 3 of 5 from the field, all of them being 3. And then he made his free throws, too. Can we talk about that? 9 of 11 as a team, and Yegor was 6 of 7 from the free throw line. That is the type of performance that makes you believe that he can be a first-round, potentially lottery pick NBA player. It was nice to see that in a meaningful game.
Cincinnati head coach Wes Miller pointed out BYU's three-point shooting and highlighted the difference from Yegor knocking down his threes.
Give them credit, 11 for 15. I don't know if I've ever coached a game where somebody went 11 for 15 from 3 on a team I've been a part of and a half. I don't know if they've ever been a part of that. But give them credit because you can play terrible defense and people don't go 11 for 15. And obviously that they shoot it like that. If Demon shoots it like that, they're going to be pretty hard to beat no matter who they play.
It's a great point because, BYU, the predictive metrics, the things like Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, net rankings, They love BYU. BYU had a huge jump from last week's wins at Colorado in Cincinnati, hovering around that top 35 range, which you start to get into that bubble territory for the NCAA tournament. Feels like the difference when BYU hits the three. It sounds simple, but you go 15 of 24 from three. You can't always expect an all-time night like that. That was the 10th most threes in a game by BYU in their history. But still, it shows the potential of this team that they can get hot, and it can be a thing of beauty to watch.
And that was my other takeaway, Mitch. As I said, a lot's going to be made about the shot making, but it was the rebounding. But at the end of the day, Mitch, you got to make shots. Someone told me today, who knew that making shots in basketball would be so impactful to wins and losses? And I think we overlooked that at times. And some of these losses, they're shooting well below 30% from three. Hard to win when you just are not shooting the ball well. So, of course, on a night in which they make 15 threes, and you look at the box score, something I love too is you look at that second half, and Wes Miller alluded to this, 11 of 15. You're not going to lose a lot of those games. But in the first half, that's what I think BYU can do more frequently. 42% from the field, 44% from three. They make all of their, they were only two, but they made them, 2 free throws. Those are numbers that they should be striving for consistently, because if they can rebound well, and if they shoot it, maybe not to the tune of 44%, because that would put you near the top of the NCAA shooting percentages across the country. But, man, 73% from three, you're not going to do that very often. But 40% from three, you can aspire to that. And I just thought from start to finish, they shot the ball well. And, hey, when you shoot the ball well, Mitch, you win some basketball games.
My other big takeaway from last week is that, BYU clearly not in the cellar of this league. I think there were times when they lost to Utah and TCU that BYU fans were kind of letting their mind go to some dark places and thinking, oh, no, they're going to bottom out and hit the cellar of the Big 12. That's not the case, because you look at how BYU's getting their wins. Their 4 victories in Big 12 play are against 4 of the bottom 5 teams in the league. So clearly better than the cellar of this conference: Oklahoma State, Cincy, ASU, Colorado. ASU, oddly enough, is firmly in the bubble conversation, which is kind of interesting because of their resume. But still, BYU they got to start ramping things up and getting some quality wins going forward. The schedule is going to kick into overdrive starting this week, and we'll break down tomorrow night's game a little bit more later this hour. But, that's one thing that stood out to me is that BYU, there's clearly a separation from like the bottom 4 or 5 teams in this league. BYU in the middle right now, but definitely room to grow for this BYU team moving forward.
Can I also add a bonus takeaway here? The fact that we haven't even brought up Richie Saunders yet is sort of remarkable. And I think it just goes to show how great of a season he's having. He's having an all Big 12 year, Mitch. And on a night in which he scores 20 points again, more than 20 points, 21 points, makes 5 threes, it doesn't even register because we've come to expect this from Richie Saunders. That is remarkable. And I don't know if we are giving his improvement under Kevin Young enough credit, because he has taken a massive, massive leap forward to where he's now at the top of people's scouting reports, and he's still delivering. And he's playing within the system, and he's still defending at a high level. I love the point that you made last week in Cougar Sports Saturday, Mitch, where you just noted even with the increased scoring, it hasn't affected his defense. He's still a reliable defender. He's making plays on both ends of the floor, and we don't even talk about it because we've come to expect this from Richie Saunders night in and night out, and it's just a testament to his work. It's a testament to Kevin Young to getting him back and the development, playing him in position too. Can we talk about that, Mitch? How important it is that he's now playing a guard position and how much more in the flow of things it seems that he's playing in the right spot. It's just, man, Richie Saunders continues to impress, and because he keeps doing it every night, I think we just start to look the other way. But, man, it's really impressive what he's doing.
Saunders is 4th during Big 12 play in scoring, averaging 18.1 points per game. He is a bucket every single night for BYU. So you're right. Richie Saunders definitely deserves credit pretty much every night. This is no longer some flash in the pan. I think a couple weeks ago you thought, can BYU be a team that gets the NCAA tournament if Richie Saunders is the number 1 guy? I feel confident saying yes, they can, because Richie has leveled up his play and answered the call to be that top guy for BYU every single night. And then you pair it up with Yegor Demmin, who doesn't have the weight of the world on his shoulders. I think that's helped Yegor's feeling of, hey, he doesn't have to be the number one guy every night. That's Richie Saunders now. Yegor can just do his thing, and when he does it at a high level, man, it's fun to watch with this BYU basketball team. We got to take a break, though. On the other side, we'll get to the question of the day. We'll take some of your phone calls as well. 801-575-8255. Cougar Nation, sponsored by Central Bank, voted best bank and mortgage in Utah Valley. Visit them online at cbutah.com. Central Bank, proud sponsors of Cougar Nation here on KSL. We're taking a break. We'll get to the question of the day next here on Cougar Nation.
How many things affect your life as much as slow traffic and bad weather? Listen tomorrow morning for traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the nines on KSL News Radio.
Cougar Nation, welcome back in. Hope you're having a fantastic Monday evening wherever and however you're listening to the show. Join us, 801-575-8255. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte here. We're ready to take your phone calls and answer tonight's question on BYU basketball. What must this BYU team do to make you believe they can make the NCAA tournament? We'll get out to the phone line and welcome in. Is it Linda? Linda, what say you, Linda? What makes you believe that BYU will get to the NCAA tournament?
I think the way they played last week was fantastic, and if they can just do the same thing and just get the score shots in by Denning and Trevin and Richie they just did wonderful job. Everybody just pitched in and did wonderful job. Of course, those three were the top three that I just mentioned, but I just thought it was really a great thing. I was just thrilled. And it was neat. We were on ESPN, too, as well. That was nice.
Thank you, Linda. Matt, what say you? What do you think that BYU needs to do to make you believe that they can make the NCAA tournament?
They have to beat Baylor. They don't have a quad one win yet, Mitch, and they're going to need several of those. They have a lot of opportunities to do so, but Baylor, to me, is a very winnable game. I don't look at Baylor and say this is a Final Four team. I don't look at them and think that they're going to run the Big 12. But yet, Baylor has a nice cachet. They have a nice brand that they've built under Coach Drew. And if you get them at home, you got the Rock behind you, you're back in the Marriott Center, you have to break through and get one of these wins. It's nice that you beat Colorado. It's nice that you beat Cincinnati. But they haven't beaten anybody yet to where you feel like, okay, this team is ascending. They can get it done against some of the best teams in college basketball. Baylor's not one of the best teams in college basketball, but they are a top 25 team. They have to beat Baylor so that I can believe that they can win some more quad one games down the road.
It's pretty crazy to see how much the schedule cranks up for BYU. The next 5 games are all quad one. And if you're not familiar with the quad system, it's how the NCAA selection committee brackets out these teams and ranks them within their net ratings. And basically teams that are ranked 1 to 30 on your home floor, you play them, it's a quad one game. 1 to 75 road game, it's a quad one team. So a lot of quality games for BYU's resume on the docket. 8 out of the next 9 are quad one teams. So we're going to learn a lot about BYU in the month of February, and it really kind of gets going at the end of January here tomorrow night against Baylor. To me, I think BYU has got to finish with a winning record in Big 12 play if they're going to make the NCAA tournament. 11-9 would be that mark for BYU to get that winning record, because the strength of schedule in non-conference is incredibly weak. There's nothing on the bone there when it comes to non-conference wins. NC State, that win in San Diego has done nothing for BYU. NC State is really the team they were last season until they got hot in March and made a run to the Final Four. They've been a bust this year. So BYU has got to have a winning record, I think, at least in Big 12 play if they have any shot. And right now you're at 4-4. That would mean over the next 12 games you go 7-5. And with how difficult the schedule is, as I noted, that's going to be a tall order for BYU. But I do believe that this BYU team has the ability to do it, because last week was so promising, Matt. And when they were down 10 at Colorado in Boulder, I thought season might be done. And then Richie Saunders single-handedly put together a 7-0 run that was great on both ends of the floor. And in many respects, it saved BYU's season. And, I hope for BYU that they can continue to stack up these wins. And that's what Kevin Young is hoping to see from his team that continues to grow confidence.
I feel good. Winning obviously breeds confidence. Shot making breeds confidence. So, the season is, you always have ups and downs, and you hope to capitalize on the ups and build on them. That's kind of what I told our guys. We want to we've really stacked good days practice-wise, and now we got to stack wins.
Well said by Kevin Young, and it's specific to the wins, Mitch. They have to find ways to win games. And a lot of these losses, they were right there. At Utah, winnable game. You go back to that MTE in Southern California against Ole Miss, a lot of opportunities, and turnovers hurt them in those losses. It's not like this team in the losses, Mitch. They're not consistently getting blown out. They're right there, but they have to break through. Now, I thought against Cincinnati, one thing that was really noteworthy and helpful going forward is it wasn't just one or two guys. Cannon Catchings had a really nice bounce-back game. I don't know if you can expect 3 or 4 shooting from 3 every time, but it was nice to see Cannon back in the rotation, scoring points. That's what you need. Dawson Baker, I think, continues to play at a high level, and he gives you some scoring off the bench as well. So it was really encouraging in that win against the Bearcats that it wasn't just Richie and Yegor. There were others who contributed, and you need a balanced scoring attack to win some of these quad one games coming up.
BYU's team, they have a lot of personnel that they can throw at opponents. If someone is having an off night, that's not the end of the world because, Kevin Young has gone deep into the season, basically to this point, and had games where he's played, 11 guys. Just last week at Colorado, he had 11 guys get action. And even someone like Mihailo Boscovich had a role in that Colorado game and did a nice job at the 5. Didn't play much in the Cincinnati game. I don't think it was a great matchup for Boscovich in that one. But, that's the nice thing that this BYU team has. And for the last couple weeks, they've stayed relatively healthy finally. And it's, they're getting into a routine, whereas December it was – basically you never played and everyone's banged up, it felt like. And now, even though you're navigating the grind of Big 12 play and a 20-game season, this team feels like they're in good spirits and they're healthy. And, I think that this team's in a really good place right now, Matt. But you're right. I think that tomorrow night against Baylor is really going to tell us a lot about the direction of where this season goes because Baylor is a team that the metrics like them a lot. They're a top 30 team, but they haven't really beat anyone of substance. Anyone that they've faced that's in the upper tier of the sport, Gonzaga, Tennessee, Iowa State, they've just pretty much been hammered. They've lost by double digits to all those teams. If BYU can get a comfortable victory over the Bears, I think that would be another nice win to really stack it up, as Kevin Young said, and really give this team even more momentum and more validation that they're not just beating up on the bad teams. They can contend with some of the best programs in the Big 12 with this group.
Tomorrow's night is huge, Mitch. If they win that game, it does validate the progress and the momentum, and you get more confidence, and you get a resume-building win. If you lose that game, especially if it's in the fashion in which they've lost other games, bad free throw shooting, poor three-point shooting, turnovers down the stretch, then it sort of feels like you're back to square one. Yeah, great wins against Colorado and Cincinnati. That's great. But if we're talking about the NCAA tournament, and we're talking about playing meaningful games in March, these are the type of games you have to win. And unfortunately, that non-conference schedule didn't provide a lot of opportunities for this team to boost the resume. They have to do it now. The margin of error is slim. And at home specifically, Mitch, that's where they need to take advantage of these opportunities.
It's pretty amazing, too, when you size up BYU and Baylor. Very similar profiles statistically on the court. BYU's averaging 80.4 points per game. Baylor 79.9. Scoring defense 66.2 for BYU, 67.8 for Baylor. You can go through. This is a very evenly matched matchup, and BYU is the favorite in this game. And I think you give a little bit of an edge to the home team. And I think the Marriott Center is always good for a couple points because that place can get rocking. And I expect a energetic crowd because the name on the opponent's jersey, I think, is going to register a little more energy hosting a program like Baylor who, just 4 years ago, won a national title. I don't think they've come anywhere close to those heights recently for Baylor, but still, they've got great talent. And there's going to be a lot of NBA personnel at that game, 26 scouts from 13 different teams. So this is going to be a must-see event, and BYU looks to get a big win to really add to that they're a factor into the Big 12 race.
Let's get to a break, Mitch. On the other side, we'll get to what's trending up and down. And, of course, Cougar Nation, where are you at? We're taking your calls. We want to hear your thoughts on what does this team need to do to get into the NCAA tournament, or at least make you believe they can get there. And, hey, why not else share some thoughts on this team? Some of the players, of course, call in, because Cougar Nation, this is for you. Back after this.
Be ready for BYU Game Day. Download the KSL News Radio app to stream BYU games, plus breaking news during the week. That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Welcome back into Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte. We hold it down every Monday night, 6 to 7, talking BYU sports. Right now it's BYU basketball season, and it's a fascinating team to me because there were so many high expectations, Matt, for this group, because so much new with Kevin Young and just the unprecedented stuff that he was building and doing with this program that I think fans maybe let their minds wander a little bit and think, get a little bit, maybe put the cart before the horse. And what's the saying? I don't know. But it felt like, they kind of put things, thought they were going to be a Elite Eight, Final Four team before games were played. But I do think that you're seeing positive signs from this team that leads you to believe that potential could be realized. And I think that Kevin Young has been consistent that he wants to see the best product in March. And I love that messaging because I've seen many BYU teams peak in January or December or February even. I want to see BYU basketball peak in March, and they're well positioned to do that.
This team is on the up, and if they can get enough quad one wins, they could very well be in the tournament. Tomorrow will be a good barometer for how much they've improved since losing at Utah, which seems like, gosh, that feels like it was weeks ago, but it was really, less than 10 days ago that they lost up in Salt Lake City. I don't blame the fans or anyone for the high expectations, because you look at the roster and you could maybe say they're underperforming a bit, and some of that's due to the uneven play of Yegor. You haven't gotten high-quality play very often this season from Dallin Hall. Against Cincinnati, 0 points. He plays 20 minutes. 0-2 from the field. He does have 3-1 assist to turnover, but kind of not that impactful. So I think fans looked at the roster and said, Dallin Hall is going to improve. That, unfortunately, has not happened yet. And then you looked at the talent coming in. I think the expectations were fine to be an NCAA tournament team. Now, this team can still get there, Mitch, but they got to stack some wins. And there's positive signs, but tomorrow is really a critical juncture in the season. It's a home game. There's a lot of hard games left at home. And last season, BYU did a great job of winning a lot of those games. They did a fantastic job of defending home court at the Marriott. They got to do it again tomorrow night.
Let's dive in more to what's trending up and trending down with this BYU Hoops team.
Cougar Nation, trending. What's trending up and what's trending down this season?
You mentioned Dallin Hall, Matt. I'll start things off here. Trending down, we'll start on that side of things. Dallin Hall, I think, is trending down just a little bit because, you know what, and I say this, I asked Kevin Young about it earlier today. I said, is he in a little bit of a shooting rut? And Kevin Young didn't point to that. He pointed because, Dallin has not made a field goal in the last 3 games. He's not attempting much. Only 1 or 2 field goals at most. And last week's season low in minutes played. He only averaged 18 minutes per game in these past 2 games. But I think there's this feeling from the staff and hearing Kevin Young today that they got to create more opportunities for Dallin to, be more aggressive with his shot and still look for it more. He's still getting assists. He's still putting up some numbers in the assist department in the minutes that he is playing. But I think offensively you want to see more from Dallin. And I'm very curious to see this week how Kevin Young and Dallin, when he does get his opportunities, how aggressive they look to be to get him more shot attempts because lately Dallin's been kind of a non-factor on the offensive end for BYU.
He's too passive right now. 2 field goals, give me a break. Like, Dallin Hall is a good offensive player. and he needs to be taking at least 5 field goals a game. I think there are times where he plays with Yegor, and I feel like he's too deferential to Yegor. It's okay to keep the ball. It's okay after a rebound to not push it up ahead to Yegor and let him run the offense. I don't think that's what anyone envisioned when they thought Yegor and Dallin together, what's it going to be? It should be a sharing of the point guard duties. And Dallin is a great teammate, Mitch, and he wants to get along with everybody, and he wants to do the right thing and make the right play. And I think he just needs a little dose of, I need to get mine a little bit. Be a little more selfish in some regards. Don't be reckless. Just be the Dallin Hall we saw against Oklahoma State a few weeks ago, where you're taking threes, you're making threes, you're being aggressive, getting to the rim. They need Dallin to be aggressive, and right now he's just being way too deferential.
I'm with you, and I think there's opportunities to be that guy. It's not like, it's going to be a detriment to the team. I think BYU, and as Kevin Young laid out today, they need him to they need to find ways to get Dallin some more shot attempts. So I think it's important for Dallin to be more aggressive on that end when he does get his minutes. What's trending down for you with BYU?
Foose. I think the impact of Foose right now is diminishing a little bit. He did not play many minutes in the win against Cincinnati, only 13. He had 4 points, 2 of 3. I think he will play a big role tomorrow. Baylor is physical, and they're going to need that physical presence from Foose. But just watching Foose in person over these past few weeks, he certainly has a great ability in a one-on-one low-post situation to score, but I find myself wanting more in terms of defense. I want better rim protection from Foose. We've seen it in his career. He can do it. But for whatever reason, I'm not feeling much impact when it comes to rim protection and when it comes to rebounding. I need him to be better in that regard, and I wonder if that's playing a little bit into the reduction of minutes that we've seen recently. Foose has got to find a way. If you're not scoring, you still need to be impactful. He's got a long wingspan. I mean, you look at Foose and he's undersized. He's 6'6". Dude's got a freaky wingspan.
Oh, yeah.
Like he can reject shots. He's just as good of a shot blocker as Keba Keita. If Keba's better, it's not by much. But I have not felt the presence of Foose on that end of the floor. He's got to pick it up defensively.
And it was difficult, too. Foose had a season-high 4 turnovers against Colorado, 2 turnovers again against Cincinnati. He's been having at least 2 turnovers in the last 4 games. He's got to tighten that up. Turnovers, it's critical for BYU to keep those in check. They've done a relatively good job of keeping those to a minimum, but still, I feel like if they can get some games where they're in single digits in turnovers, I think that would be a nice threshold for this team. That the margins aren't huge for this team, especially as the competition ramps up. What's trending up for you, Matt?
Speaking of the margins, what a segue, Mitch. It's like we've been doing the show together for a couple years now.
You know it.
The margins. What's one area of margin that you can and you should excel at every single night? Free throw shooting. And I liked what we saw against Cincinnati. 9 of 11. Didn't get there a lot. Got there more than Cincy, though. But when you get there, make those free throws. A couple of these losses, TCU, Utah, you look at the free throw shooting numbers, you're like, my goodness, if you just shoot 80% from the free throw line, you win these games. And we're having a totally different conversation right now. You'd be 6-2 in league play, near the top of the league, if you could just make some free throws. That is an area that BYU has struggled at of late in terms of the last couple years. They have to be better. There's gonna be games in the future, these quad one games, Mitch, where it's going to come down to a couple points and a couple possessions. And if you look back and lose that game because you went 7 of 14 from the free throw line, and that keeps you out of the NCAA tournament, think about that. If you just make you can really boil it down to this in some of these losses, Mitch. If you just make your free throws, shoot 80% or better, you're going dancing. It's that simple. This is the difference in maybe 4 or 5 wins and losses. You just do that. So I liked what I saw against Cincinnati. It's trending up, but they got to continue to shoot it well because these quad one games, man, they're going to come down to the horn. And you talk about margins. What's one place where the margin, you're in control of the margin? It's getting to the free throw line and making those shots.
A guy that has been knocking down shots from the free throw line this season at a pretty good clip with the few times he gets there is Dawson Baker. He's trending up for me. He's shooting 73% from the free throw line this year, but I think from the field, looking at his stats, 58% from the field in conference play. Dawson Baker is a bucket when he comes off the bench. He's just doing a nice job. His floater game was on point against Cincinnati. This was Kevin Young on Dawson Baker, and his success making him feel more confident.
I think for him, coming from, a smaller level and then being injured last year, I'm sure he had some internal questions about, doing it at a higher level, and the more success he's had, I think it's growing his confidence even more.
It was pretty cool, too. Moments after that comment from Kevin Young, he pointed out that when he was in the NBA with the Suns, he was still following BYU from afar, and he came across Dawson's highlights and was impressed with Dawson coming out of UC Irvine. I just thought that was cool, and it was a little lens into how Kevin Young was really invested in BYU, even when he was in the grind of the NBA, keeping tabs on BYU. I thought that was pretty cool. And Kevin Young quietly, Matt, has given us these little hints of how he looks at Dawson Baker as maybe a guy that even late game situation, they turn to him as the one, to be a guy that they get for that last second bucket as they turn to him against Utah. They think very highly of Dawson Baker on this team.
He probably needs more minutes, especially with Dallin Hall being a little too passive. Dawson Baker's not passive, and that's exactly what you need from these guards opposite of Yegor. Yegor is unselfish. Yegor wants to get others involved. So you get the ball, let it rip. Get to the rim, shoot the shot. I love what we've seen Dawson do these past couple of games. Even in the loss against Utah, Dawson looked great. And I had no problem with them going to him late in that game, even though the shot did not fall. I love Dawson's attack mentality. He wants to score. He believes he is a great offensive player. It's exactly what this team needs. And I'd love to see him play more because I think offensively he's consistent. He can shoot the three. He can get to the rim. I'm with you. Dawson Baker's trending up. I love his game, man.
Dawson averaged 10 points per game last week, was 4 of 5 from three-point range. Really productive week for Dawson Baker. Cougar Nation sponsored by Central Bank, voted best bank and mortgage in Utah Valley. Visit them online at cbutah.com. BYU versus Baylor preview next, and still time to get on board with us. 801-575-8255. Share your thoughts on BYU basketball as they get ready to host the Baylor Bears tomorrow night right here on KSL.
Cougar fans, use this radio station tomorrow morning for important news updates. Listen to Utah's most important radio station tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you. It's a big week for BYU hoops. It's a big week in Big 12 basketball. Coming up tonight, Iowa State's going to take on Arizona on Big Monday. BYU, of course, against Baylor in Provo. Coming up tomorrow night, we'll be inside the Marriott Center, tip-off at 7 o'clock. You can listen to the game here on KSL. It's going to be televised on ESPN2. Big game between the Cougars and the Bears. And, Matt, let's get out to the phone line and welcome in some of our callers. Nolan from San Antonio, you want to talk about Yegor Demon?
Yes, sir. Tomorrow night, let's call it Big Tuesday. And I just want to say a lot of Cougar fans seem to be kind of down on Yegor. Maybe he doesn't score enough, but I think that what they need to realize is as a freshman, he's really the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. I believe we won't see him after this year. I think latest I saw probably a 7th pick overall. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, and there was, if you kind of combine all the top mock drafts, you see him around 6, 7. There's going to be 27 NBA scouts and personnel at tomorrow night's game, so that kind of highlights the interest in Yegor and VJ Edgecombe from Baylor.
How do we get a nickname for him? I want to promote a nickname for him, The Difference, because he makes the difference. When he's hot, the team wins. When he's kind of down, has he been a few games ago, the team struggles. So I think he is the difference.
Thanks for the call, Nolan. I like that. Matt, what do you think?
I think
Yegor the difference? Nolan,
love the call, man, but I could not disagree more. Yegor is not the difference. To me,
what?
To me, this might sound crazy, but to me the difference is a guy who's been in the program since 1999, it seems like. Trevin Knell. Trevin Knell, to me, is the difference. When Trevin Knell is shooting it like he is shot of late, that is a big reason this team is winning.
Matt, so you're saying I'm siding with Nolan because if Yegor plays like he did against Cincy, BYU's going to go to the dance and they got a chance to, win a game. What do you say? I mean, that's the difference because we've seen when Yegor has some no-show performances, they're losing to anyone in this league. But when Jaeger shows up, they can beat anyone.
Jaeger's shooting was very nice against Cincinnati, but he's had some poor shooting games that they've still won. But and Jaeger doesn't want to score. That's the other thing. Like I'd love to live in a world in which Jaeger wants to fill it up and score 20 points a game. He's not interested in that. And Kevin Young's told us that. He wants to make the right play. He wants to survey the defense and distribute the basketball. Well, he cannot do that effectively if there aren't other players making shots on the other end. And BYU needs Trevin Knell, man. They need this dude to be a sharpshooter. Knell is quietly rising the ranks. I don't know how many fans realize this, but when it comes to, you talk about percentage, 3-point percentage, and 3-point makes, Trevin Knell is rising the list. When his career is all said and done, he could be top 5 in both, perhaps, Mitch. They need Trevin to be a double-digit scorer. He has to be consistent in that. Jaeger has not proven an ability at all this season to be a consistent scorer. He's proven to be a consistent difference maker in terms of running the offense and getting others involved. But if the others aren't making the shots, that makes Jaeger, his superpower, less effective. They need Trevin Knell. They're getting – Richie's consistent. You know what you're getting from Richie. Can you get that every night from Trevin? Because if Trevin's giving you 12 to 15 a night along with Richie, anything from Jaeger scoring-wise is just a bonus.
I do like the mention of Trevin because last week at this time, it was a hard time for Trevin after that Utah game. Cincinnati and Colorado games, he was solid, and he was 6 of 11 from 3. You put up those type of numbers in a week, BYU is going to be in a good spot. Let's get back out to the phone line, 801-575-8255. We'll go to Logan, not the city, but Logan from Provo. What do you got? What's on your mind, Logan?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man.
I kind of wanted to talk about just how impressed I've been with Kevin Young. Obviously, everyone had high expectations going into the year. I kind of expected, some setbacks just because adjusting to the college game, I think, is often harder than people realize. But I've been really impressed just by, first and foremost, his willingness to adjust the lineups. We've seen a lot of different starting lineups, a lot of different groupings out on the floor. I was a little worried that he was going to be too loyal to the high recruits that he brought in, but it's clear that he's prioritizing the success of the team, even if it comes at expense of the minutes of, some of the new players that are struggling. Relying on the older guys who are getting more consistent production, that's something that I've just been really impressed with, is his willingness to adapt like that. And honestly, people are talking about it more and more. I still don't think it's talked about enough, is the development of Richie Saunders and how he's starting to make his way into, NBA conversations down the road in his career. That was something that when Kevin Young first started saying that, I wasn't too sure if I agreed with seeing Richie as a future NBA guy. And when I told my friends about it, they were with me there. But, man, it's just totally changed in the past, 4 months or so. So, anyways, just really, really impressed with how he's doing.
Great stuff. And, hey, we've been talking about it a little bit here on Cougar Nation, the development of Richie Saunders. But, yeah, Kevin Young's done a great job. And I think the point you're making, too, on the young guys is specific to Cannon Catchings, who was in the starting lineup, struggled, saw his minutes go down, and they played some of the older guys more. I think Kevin Young's done a phenomenal job, all things considering. Great debut for him. Sure, there's going to be some bumps along the road, Mitch, but I don't know how you couldn't be more impressed with what he's done in this first year.
Well said, and I think that what's been promising, too, about Kevin Young is that he's not, I love Logan's take about how he's willing to adjust, because Kevin Young wants to ultimately win. He doesn't care who it is out there on the floor. He wants to find ways to win and put out a winning product every single night. And it doesn't matter what your star rating is. He wants to win and perform at a high level. So Kevin Young's doing a nice job. I think better days are definitely ahead for the first-year head coach standout for BYU. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Nation. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, and we will talk to you on Saturday with Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL.